brain has a blood-brain barrier that's supposed to keep certain toxins, certain chemicals out of your brain. And by keeping that brain or that blood-brain barrier sound, you're going to increase your ability to be able to operate neurologically. So one thing is cold showers. It's funny, one of the most popular videos on YouTube that I have is how to take a cold shower, which I think is hilarious that people have to watch a video to figure out how to take a cold shower. But if you want to upgrade it, Ray Cronise, who worked with the previous speaker here, Wim Hof, Ray Cronise has a specific hot-cold contrast shower. I took one this morning as soon as I woke up. All you do is 20 seconds of cold to 10 seconds hot, 10 times through. It's called a 5-minute hot-cold contrast shower. In working with a lot of his clients, he was able to not only strip body fat off of them, because you get conversion of adipose tissue into metabolically active brown fat, but it's also fantastic anytime you get exposed, especially if you can get your head wet or your head cold, for your blood-brain barrier integrity. This is another way that you can do things. I don't know if anyone's ever been in one of these cryotherapy chambers. That's the Spiritual Warrior, or the JP Sears on YouTube. He has hilarious videos. But the idea behind these cryotherapy chambers is sound. It decreases your body's temperature and you get a lot of the benefits of cold, but you gotta make sure your head goes under. Aubrey's tip to me, by the way, when I interviewed him on my podcast was when you do these cryotherapy chambers, to kind of get your head low and knock on the outside of the chamber so the person who's attending it thinks or knows that you're not dead yet. I don't know if that's as good a strategy as mine, which is to simply get a cold tub or a cold bath or a cold sink full of water and try to dip your head a few times each week. Getting your head cold is fantastic for the blood-brain barrier. It's something I try to do each day, some kind of a cold shower or cold contrast. I have a blog post on my website about all the different ways that you can set up a cold pool, anything from a $15,000 investment to a really nice chiller ozonated system in your backyard, to a freezer hack where you can get a $200 to $400 freezer off of Craigslist and make for yourself an ice bath. But this is one of the better things that you can do for your blood-brain barrier. Number 2 is to actually consider including more of these so-called compressed feeding windows or intermittent fasting periods, which can help to clean up cellular junk within your body via a process called cellular autophagy, but may also help with the immune system. Just like exercise, overdoing fasting or calorie restriction can actually deleteriously impact the immune system. But brief bouts of fasting, meaning about 12 to 16 hours for you fellas out there, and around 10 to 12 hours for you ladies out there, can actually be really beneficial. So 2 to 3 square meals a day, and then when you quit eating at night, try to wait, ladies, about 10 to 12 hours before eating again, and guys about 12 to 16 hours, and avoid lots of snacking in between meals. 2 things to ruthlessly eliminate as you choose those meals to really maintain yourself in a state of low inflammation would be to be incredibly cognizant of any exposure to vegetable oils, okay, because these seed oils can creep in. They're highly inflammatory. They're not going to help your immune system at all. And then what would be called acellular carbohydrates, which are carbohydrates that have been processed. So a cellular carbohydrate would be like sweet potato, yam, millet, amaranth, quinoa, etc. Whereas an acellular carbohydrate would be processed sugar, something like a white rice, a very heavily packaged food that has gone through a lot of processing or milling or removal of some of the nutrients from the actual carbohydrate. So choose whole food carbohydrates and avoid vegetable oils like the plague, and combine that with intermittent fasting windows that don't involve a lot of snacking in between meals. I was actually reading a research study today that shows that the ketone bodies that are formed when you're not snacking, when you're not constantly face stuffing, can actually be helpful in suppressing an inflammatory response and assisting the immune system. The next is to breathe. There's a lot of different ways that you can breathe, but there's a fantastic form of breathing called buteyko breathing. Who here in here is familiar with that or has read the book or studied up on it? The idea here is that in many cases, even though something like, say, Wim Hof style breathing is fantastic for getting ready for a workout or for increasing your tolerance to cold, you do wind up breathing off a lot of carbon dioxide. And in an ideal scenario, based on longevity studies, you want a slightly higher level of carbon dioxide simultaneous to a high level of oxygen. Because when you have a lot of carbon dioxide in your system, it shoves the oxygen into the tissues. This is called the Bohr effect. So in an ideal scenario, you teach your body how to both increase carbon dioxide and increase oxygen simultaneously. The form of breathing that teaches you how to do this is called buteco breathing, and the way to figure out if you're getting good at it is you take a normal exhale and then you just go for as long as you can without taking a sharp inhale. Now, a good score would be anything about 40 seconds or longer, being able to hold your breath after a passive exhale. That's a good sign that you can tolerate high levels of CO2 and high levels of oxygen. There are some really good books out there that teach you how to do this. There's also even a little rebreather device that you can hang around your neck, and I use this when I go on walks. It simply goes in your mouth. It teaches you how to exhale slowly, retain a lot of carbon dioxide, then breathe in through your nose and get a lot of oxygen. So maintenance of both carbon dioxide and oxygen and not trying to breathe off all your CO2 all the time is actually important for longevity because you stay oxygenated and the oxygen gets into tissue. Another one is a trick that Paul Chek taught me. I didn't realize, based on probably a lot of my years spent bodybuilding, that focus on keeping the abs tight and sucked in, how much I use my abs and my chest when I breathe, until he did an analysis. He looked at me and said, Ben, you hold your abs in, you push your chest out, you have that old bodybuilding habit. And so what he taught me was a kite string trick that I use at my desk. I tie a kite string around my waist, and I make sure that I can feel that kite string moving in and out during the day while I breathe, and that is a cue to me to do deep belly breathing rather than the shallow chest form of breathing. It activates baroreceptors in the chest, activates cortisol, and keeps me from getting as much oxygen as I actually need. So the kite string trick works really well. There are some different apps and devices now that will cue your phone via Bluetooth signal when you're slumping. And I'll put a link to some of those apps on the presentation page, but all you really need is a kite string. The second form of breathing that I really like is called box breathing. Who in here knows about box breathing? I did the equivalent of a Hell Week for civilians with the Navy SEALs in Encinitas, and the most powerful form of breathing that they taught me when we were getting battered by the Pacific Ocean and we were getting buried in the sand and doing these 26-mile night hikes and just getting beat up for a week was box breathing. Very simple. I do this when I walk through airports. I'll do it before I get on stage to talk, to suppress the heart rate a little bit. It's very simple. It's a 4 count in, 4 count hold, 4 count out, 4 count hold. Box breathing. And you can do a 5-5-5, a 6-6-6. There's some people really good at breath work who will do a 20 in, 20 hold, 20 out, 20 hold. This idea of box breathing, though, is one of the better stress control strategies that I've used. About getting the most efficiency out of simple things that trick your body into burning way more fat than it would under normal circumstances. So
how many things are we talking about today?
5.
We got 5 ways to biohack your waistline right
biohacks.
here.
Number 1, the way that this works is what you want to do is you want to get out of bed without having eaten anything at all. And you want to do about 20 to 45 minutes of exercise in what is called your fat burning zone. Now, do you know how to determine what your fat burning zone is?
So 80% or above your resting heart rate, right?
Approximately. The way that I like to do it is you get an exercise bike, you go on a run or whatever, you figure out the heart rate at which you really start burning, like stuff starts to kind of suck, right? So like for me, that's about 170 beats per minute. Like lactic acid starts to build up and my muscles start to burn. If I know what that heart rate is, I subtract 20 beats, and that's your fat burning heart rate. All right, so for me, it's like 150-ish. It doesn't have to be exact, it's an easy pace. It's like walking your dog, going for an easy swim, doing some yoga, moving, that type of thing.
Got it.
Okay, so that's number 1. In a fasted state, you gotta do that. Second thing that you wanna do is prior to doing that fasted morning fat burning workout where you wake up in a fasted state and you exercise in your fat burning zone, you put something into your system that will enhance the mobilization of fatty acids from adipose tissue. Number 1 thing for that is either coffee or green tea. And I'm not talking about coffee with like half a stick of butter in it. I'm just talking about simple, regular old green tea or matcha green tea or coffee or caffeine. No Red Bull, because Red Bull has a sugar in it. But basically anything that will spike up the caffeine levels a little bit. You don't need much, about 100 milligrams or so of caffeine max is all it takes. Tip number 3 is that after you've done those things, here's the tough part, 2 to 5 minutes of cold. It could be a cold bath, it could be a cold shower, it could be jumping in a cold river or a cold lake. 2 minutes minimum, 5 minutes maximum, and this will mobilize a whole bunch of adipose tissue and turn it into metabolically active, what is called brown adipose tissue, or BAT.
If you've never taken a cold shower before, one day
Hot,
maybe you do
yeah.
30 seconds, next day a minute,
Or
build
you
up
do
to 2
hot,
to 5.
cold contrast.
Yeah.
20 seconds hot, 10 seconds cold, 5 times through. 20
Which
seconds
is also
hot, 10
great
seconds
for
cold.
stimulating your lymphatic system as well if you do the hot and
Yep.
cold back and forth.
Exactly. Make sure that you poop like a baby. Make sure that you poop like a baby. I'll give you a few of my tips that I'm using right now. First of all, every single Wednesday, hey, we're all grown-ups here, right? I do a coffee enema. Coffee enema is fantastic for peristalsis, for bowel production, for your liver, for your gallbladder. Every single week I do one, and it keeps me going like clockwork, but it's fantastic for detoxification all year round. Get a stainless steel enema bucket, and whenever I'm home, every Wednesday, that's where I'm at on Wednesdays, lying on the bathroom floor doing my coffee enema. If you travel a lot, by the way, there's a suppository called a Glytamin that you can use to achieve a very similar effect, Glytamin. So coffee enemas, that's one thing. The next is deep tissue psoas work. Again, I didn't realize how tight a lot of these muscles that in many cases a massage therapist won't work on until I started to do deep tissue work on my psoas. It feels like someone's sticking a knife into your abs, but a lot of people have gut issues, and it's not because their gut's broken and they're following the wrong diet, it's because they have musculoskeletal issues and a very tight psoas or iliacus. So in that picture, I'm using a device called a PSO, to do deep tissue work on my psoas. The next is some form of vibration or peristalsis. So for example, one thing that I'll do when I wake up in the morning is I'll just do a very simple Qigong shaking for about 2 minutes. I'd have you guys stand up and do it, but we're on a time crunch today. Qigong shaking, another one you'll see me using in this picture is a MyoBuddy. It's a vibrating massage tool that I use to massage my whole body every few days at home, but I make sure that I hit my abs too. Because again, a lot of times a massage therapist is uncomfortable working on the area where all of your organs are, but you can do self-inflicted tissue work on your abdominals by working your psoas and by using some kind of vibration or massage, combined with, as you saw, use of a squatty potty or a squatting position. You can actually move stuff through you far more efficiently. So those are a few of my secrets for pooping like a baby.
Subscribe and never miss out on the best success tips for your life and business.